So you're in here, okay. I'm in here, the only one in my class that is me so far.
Well, other than John T., that was it for us.
Yeah. It's warm in here. My office.
Yeah, not like it was outside.
Yours. We're up here, teacher. You're getting ready to start.
You know your hands over the last 3 years? Yep. It does. Just make it where you can sit down.
I don't think I figured that yet, but I'm trying to get to I know Art's starting to get much on time, so. Yeah.
She got her.
You want me to sit down here or just go back there? You want me to sit down here or just go back here?
Missing something important, you'll jump in.
Well, all right, I'll stay down this way.
Just slides.
You probably
I
take.
haven't practiced anything. I don't know if it'll go short or long.
We'll do it Surrey style. If it starts going too fast, I'll translate for you. I went through and was showing people some pictures, and I caught a video clip of him talking. It sounded so good. He does. He really does. Oh, you're yeah, right there. Up, yeah, there you go.
That's so much better.
Well, much better than that other one we had. How many slides do you have? Okay.
I'm going to just buzz through a bunch of them.
Well, in other words, we got coverage. So we're covering a lot. We got 60 slides.
I started out, I made 30 blank slides, and I got about halfway through. And I'm like,
It's good.
I'm going to hold it to 30.
No, it's good.
Well, you want to turn out some of these ones?
There you go.
We're glad you're here, and especially our visitors from the other class. We're going to see and hear about the recent visit of David, Melanie, Dennis Terrell, and Chris to Pataputi, India, and its environs. I have not previously heard these guys be that excited coming back as they are this time from India. I'm sure Chris is going to tell you all about it. There are actually 7 churches of Christ in that area. And they visited them. Now, we haven't been directly supporting that many churches. I think Chris wants to maybe lay something on us. This class has supported for 20 years the work in Chattanooga, India. It started out with a $75 bill to put a new thatched roof on our missionary's house. And has grown from there. We're central in this class is supporting 4 preachers. They're all native, all natives. Every cent that comes in this class goes to India. There's no gifts for the teacher on Christmas. There are no flowers sent for dead folks. It all goes to India. And frankly, I'm proud of our work. I'm proud that Chris and David and Dennis and Melanie all came back excited about the work in India. Our only problem with it is that it cost over $2,000 airfare to get to India and takes how many hours in the air? 20-something, 30-something? Huh?
Yeah.
And you get older like Dennis, you come home and sleep for 2 or 3 days. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris. Feel free to ask questions, because that's how you learn. And I'm proud of these guys. I'm also proud that we have supported this ministry there for 20 years. And it started out just the class doing it for most of that time. And so here is Chris, our deacon in charge of mission work, and one who has been on many mission trips, including to India. Alan Brown has been to Chattanooga some years ago, and even met Surrey then as a young man. Or was it a boy? Surrey is our main man there. He speaks and writes English reasonably well. He holds a master's degree. And so we're proud of that work there. And with really a minimum of supervision, they have done tremendous things. So, Chris?
All right, thank you. Sorry for turning the lights off, Chad, but I want these pictures to look as good as they possibly can. I was looking at that TV earlier, and they looked so good back there, so I'll turn the lights off. I don't, now I'm thinking, did I come back not excited the last few times? Because I'm always excited, but it's the challenge with India, and Alan knows, anybody who's been there knows, it's hard to relate this experience. It is so different. It might as well be another planet with a whole nother civilization. It's an incredibly different experience than anything I can relate it to here. So the best we can do is show you these pictures. I want to start out with a photo here. Well, I had control. Chad, you may need to click on PowerPoint on the one that's got the presenter. There we go. I wanted to start out thanking this class, thanking Brother Trimble and this couple for all the support for India. That's one of my main goals right now, is to get more people excited about the work in India. And Arch has been doing this for a long time, of telling people about the work, telling them they ought to support the work, and I back that up heartily. There is so much good that can be done in India for so little American dollars. that we need to do it judiciously and make sure we have connections. That's why we take these trips, so we're not just sending checks over there or money transfers and we don't know what's happening, but to go and have several viewpoints on, is the work good? Is the man we're supporting faithful, or is there a temptation to be corrupted by these American dollars, which there is and sadly happens with a lot of mismatches of people sending funds and not really looking into what the work is actually doing. But we left the U.S. on Thursday, December 27th. So Wednesday night I took this picture because I wanted to be sure and show Suri and the church there. Everybody's doing good back here, and they were all super excited to see this photo on my phone. This is 3 days later on Sunday morning, and just to back up, we left Thursday from Chattanooga about noon, went to Atlanta and flew out of Atlanta to Paris. That's about a 10-hour flight. Paris to Chennai, which used to be Madras, India, but they changed the name. So Chennai, that was about a 10-hour flight. There was some layovers in there. If you're tall, it's no fun. It's no fun anyway, but I was really miserable that first flight. Then I got some sleep. But then we got about 5 hours in a hotel room. It was supposed to have been about 8 hours, which was already short, but we lost one bag at that point. But anyway, we got up the next morning, flew the next two flights to where we were going. So that's on Saturday morning, because we kind of move forward over time zones to get there. So anyway, it's about 35, 36 hours to where we're going minimum. And it is a lot of transferring bags to taxis, to hotels, to taxis. It's a whole big, it'll wear you out just getting there. Sunday morning, though, this is the view out of our hotel window and kind of see just an industrial place. By the way, I have filtered all these to make them pretty. India is a gorgeous, beautiful place, but it is the dirtiest place I've ever been. Nicaragua's bad, some of the places we go in Nicaragua, but I think India is far and away. The overpopulation, the diesel, and they dry out cow dung cakes and burn as fuel out in the villages. The pollution, it's just terrible. You wake up, the sun has to get over the horizon of smog before you even see the sun. And there's smog everywhere. In every city we went to, just thick, you could taste it. But we got out. Me and David went running and power walking every morning. And usually walked out to this river here or inlet, and there's a temple there and some pretty boats. This is a cow. At first I thought, we're not seeing as many cows as I remember seeing in the past, just wandering around. Cows are holy. They don't eat them. Nobody in India, except for one Muslim state, I think they eat some beef, but most of India, they will not eat any of these cows. There's some that are domesticated, and they'll get milk, I think, or do whatever they do with their cows, but a lot of them just wander, and it doesn't seem like anybody's in charge of this cattle. So this one's trying to get into a store one morning. This is arriving at church on Sunday morning. It's always overwhelming, and I know just showing Arch and Joe's picture earlier, y'all don't want to be honored. As Americans, we don't want to be honored. We just want to show up and do our thing and encourage them. But their culture really has a big emphasis on honoring people who should be honored, dignitaries and politicians and mayors and visiting missionaries. So they really rolled out the red carpet, and they always do, with fireworks and with a drum processional with a bunch of kids coming out singing and shaking our hands. Sometimes they'll throw like flower petals at us, and there's usually, most places we go, a garland put around our neck. Some places they put this shawl over our shoulders and take pictures like we're some impressive person, and we're not, and we tell them we're not, but they really overwhelm us with that. I'm always curious too, like those drums are going to stop right here at the door, right? Like we're not taking those into worship, and they never have been in there. Then we went in for Bible class. They have children's worship or children's Bible class first, and then the kids, a lot of them leave. They don't stay around for the worship service with the adults, which I always found kind of strange, but that's how they do it. Some of them stayed, I think especially because we were there, they stayed with us. But all the kids sit on the floor for Bible class. And Suri said, okay, you can teach Bible class for about 45 minutes. Nobody had told us that before, so we had nothing prepared for Bible class. So I actually had on my phone notes from Caleb's last lesson he gave us when he was here, and I was trying to preach at him Caleb's sermon, and it just, I did about 10 minutes of that, and we just quit and hung out with the kids. This is a picture we took in 2010 of the congregation here with everybody had signed it. So that's in a frame on the outside of the building as you walk in that says, greetings from Central Church of Christ or something like that. And they pray about you. They pray about us all the time. They're every week, probably in a lot of their personal prayers, praying about the church at Central and the Chattanooga Christians that they know of through this connection. This is the water treatment system that me and Dennis took over there in 2014, about 3 years ago, 2015, I guess. It's still set up and it's plumbed, but they are not using it, which is a bummer because we spent about $2,000 to set that up, and they used it for about a year. It uses rock salt, like a saltwater pool. It chlorinates water by separating those things. So it tastes a little funny. And the people have drunk the water out of the wells and the reservoir that they have nearby all their lives. So they always questioned, why do we need special water? And when we were there, we had a bunch of lessons on the water of life, and the water of life will save your soul, but this water might save your tummy. Like, this water could really help you not be sick. So it's still there, it's ready to go, and if there's flooding, I was encouraging them, if there's ever a situation where people don't have access to clean water, you should be able to fire this up and get clean water to them.
Hey, Chris?
Yes?
The church was using the water out of that when they were cooking, though, when we were there.
Were they?
Yeah, it was
So that's good to hear.
coming out of the drain.
So apparently they are using it on the compound. I don't
Except
think
for
people
not
are,
giving it away.
yeah, people aren't coming to get it anymore. Which for a while there, we had some containers we were giving away that said Petapootie Church of Christ, and people could come get clean water. But they ramped it down. They had it at 1.4 of those big containers. So it's interesting. There's things that we do that we don't know for sure if it's going to work or not. I think, even for the year of healthy stomachs, probably worth it to have done this. But it's also there as a backup. But there's other things, which I'll show you in a minute, but like the toilets that we've built, those are saving lives. Like, it's amazing the things we take for granted. So this is back, we had the children's class, then we had worship. People come into church and they are there to worship. I feel like a bad Christian sometimes when I compare my frame of mind for worship with every member at Petapootie Churches of Christ, because they come in and bow down on their knees with their face to the ground just when they come in the building. They've taken off their shoes, which is custom everywhere, but it's a holy place to them to be with God, and they bow down and pray for a few minutes and get their mind right while everybody else is singing. Then they'll sit down on the floor if they're a woman, or in a chair if they're a man, or towards the back for some of the women. It's a humbling experience, and I feel like we have a lot to learn from them about how to really worship God. So that's before service even starts. During service, they have the big prayer. Like, we have the big prayer, and the big prayer means you get on your knees and bow. So everybody in there, kids, older folks, everybody bows down, like the man you see in the background, and me and David and Dennis and Melanie, not used to this, I don't imagine. So 1 minute, my toes are turning all different ways, and my knees are hurting. It's an uncomfortable experience, but that's my resolution this year, is to spend more time on my knees in prayer. And I think that physical act really helps us humble ourselves before God. So then had the big sermon. David did that. And then we also have a pretty big Lord's Supper lesson typically. And during the Lord's Supper, there's another prayer with bowing. So that's also a very emotional and meaningful thing to really focus on the Lord's Supper in that way. After service, that particular day, I think it was just because, I think they either do this monthly or maybe it was just because it was the end of the year, but they had a fellowship meal for the kids. So they cooked curry and rice for the children, using, I guess, that water to boil everything. And it's interesting, I've had a hard time explaining this, but when they come together, Like when we come together, we bring casseroles and Jello molds, whatever we bring to a fellowship meal, the typical stuff, fried chicken. But most of the people there don't have anything to bring besides rice. So the church has to cater a meal for them to have a meal other than just rice. So there's usually money involved. So they're a lot of times asking us for money. Can we have money for this thing? We're like, we don't do that. We just come together and bring our casseroles. Well, y'all do that. They don't make casseroles. They don't have an oven. That's just how all these meals had to work. Was usually somebody had to raise funds to buy the chicken and rice and curry powders and things. Then that afternoon, we went on a short tour of visiting some of the homes nearby. So this is right near the church, and that in the background is that woman's toilet that the Trimble class helped build. So Prime Minister Modi has a goal of getting 100% access to toilets in India. As of 2 years ago, they had about 33% access of 1.2 billion people. Only a third of them had access to any toilets. So people are going out in the fields, on the side of the road. Women have to get up super early in the morning and sneak out because there's a risk of being raped or abused. I think 3 of our church members have been bitten by snakes going in the field. 2 of them died. So that's what really led us to really get involved. So we've built about 60 toilets. They cost $400 to build, and if you raise the money, the government will repay $200 of that. So we put up $200. The local person had to get $200, but they got the government incentive to get these toilets built. So that is making a huge difference in people's lives. You see it's up off the ground. It's got a collection tank. It's clean. It's hygienic. Going everywhere else is not. And about 10, 15 years ago, they were making these public latrines. Those were spreading disease, but they found it's much better for every individual family to have some access to their own toilet that they keep clean. They need a few more. There's a few more families in the church and even just around that we could help build toilets for. The government still has this program, but I think we built so many toilets, the local people said, there's other people who need toilets. Like, we're not giving you the government payoff anymore. So now if we build these toilets, it'll be $400 each. But they're still needed, so that's something to think about if anybody feels called to do that. That's Suri there, very proud of the toilet that we've helped build there. And I love talking about toilets at church. It's my favorite. This is Monday night. Monday we got to sleep in a little bit, which we all needed. But Monday evening was New Year's Eve. And I really wanted David and Melanie and any of y'all who could ever go. New Year's in India is a big deal. Christmas is not a big deal. We actually saw a lot of Christmas trees and candy canes hung the wrong way and other stuff this year. There's more interest in Christmas than ever before, just from a marketing, materialistic kind of point of view, not a Christian point of view at all. But New Year's has always been a big deal. So on New Year's, the whole community, or a lot of the community, gathers there at the church for fun and games, and then a big gospel meeting to sing and pray in the new year. This was a bike race where you don't pedal, you just kind of coast downhill, and these guys were really good at it. Me and David and Dennis also competed at that, and Dennis would shove me. He was really terrible, but David, I think, when we didn't fall on him, David won the race of the coasting the bike race. I don't have any pictures of it. These girls, I guess it was all women who do this, right? No men did this. It's a customary thing to do these this artwork in front of your house all year long. It's usually white chalk outlines that just kind of decorate things. But sometimes there's colorful chalk, or it's like rice chalk. I'm not sure exactly what that powder is, but it's really, really colorful. And they'll fill in the blanks there. So they had a competition for that. And I told David and Melanie and Dennis, Dennis knows, we had to judge it last time. So we had to judge these things. And that's a lot of pressure because a lot of people are really into this. There's a lot of cute little girls here who were doing it, but there was a lot of moms. And they were serious. It's like, don't make them mad at us. But they had they'll put out little white dots, and it's really a neat geometric pattern that they come up with. And it was just sun setting, just a beautiful evening for us.
I think there were 22. different designs?
About 22 entries, most of them teen girls, a few little kids, and then 5 or 6 moms, I would say, grown women competing at it. Some of them were really ambitious and huge, and they had a time frame, so it's kind of like I was like, this should make a great show. Like, we should do this as a TV show. David was real sure to explain, like, he had an art degree and had some criteria, and that art is subjective, and everybody's a winner. So we gave out first, second, and third for that. This is they have another word for it, but henna tattoos that go away after a few days. I always tell the story, though. Dennis, they put this on me and Dennis last time, and Dennis said, what are they doing? I was like, it's a tattoo. He said, is it forever? And I said, yeah. They had a real pretty flower he thought he was going to have his whole life. So that evening, it's a lot of song and dance and sharing together cultural activities, but every age group has practiced these skits. We didn't get a lot of translation. I think some of them had spiritual messages, but there was also just fun and games there. There was a candlelight procession, which was really nice, except one girl's hair caught on fire. Not bad, but she lost some hair. But that was new. I've never seen that. But then we were preaching. So 2 of us preached from like 9 p.m., then a break, and then another lesson right up to midnight, and then prayer for about 30, 45 minutes into the new year, and then a lot of Happy New Year, walking around shaking everybody's hand multiple times, saying Happy New Year, and that lasts all through the next week. Everybody wants to greet you and say Happy New Year.
Chris, that process that they did that whole day of all those activities and stuff is open not only for all the community, but later on we were asking Suri about the expense involved. And he said, this is where I get my contacts for the whole year. Mm-hmm. He said, you may not have noticed, but I've been taking notes and phone numbers. And so he's got a whole category of backlog now of people to go follow up on that have come to these.
I kind of think of that as kind of like our giveaway, as a chance to get people in this building and make contacts. I didn't really realize it was quite that strategic. But it is also the local politician, the village leader was there. He came actually out on New Year's Day, and it was his wife. So I was thinking there was a local woman who was the village leader, that's kind of a big deal for, there's females in Indian politics, but not real common. But anyway, she's off doing something somewhere else, and her husband is now the local village leader, who's a Hindu man, but their 2 sons have been baptized and are in the church. So they're working on him, but found out he may be an alcoholic. So when he showed up the next day, he may have been a little drunk. So it's kind of one of those, like, you want him there, but do you want a drunk politician? Ideally, he'll come back sober and see the light. On New Year's Day, on Tuesday, these 3 people came forward to be baptized. He said 2 of them, he knew that couple there on the right that they've been studying with, but the other man just showed up and after the preaching wanted to be baptized. So that was a good surprise. So they filled up the local baptistry. There's a pump. So whenever you hear that pump going, that's a good sound because you know that we're going to be baptizing somebody. So baptized the 3 of them. David prayed and Suri translated, and there'll be a lot of follow-up. There's a good system of working with new Christians there that the local brethren won't leave anybody out hanging out to dry. They'll be there with them. Then there was a big fellowship meal on New Year's Day. So there's about 250 people there. They're walking around putting rice out and the curry in that bucket. Whenever the curry's that bright red, it is hot. It's really spicy hot, which I've heard their food is spicy so that it'll last longer without refrigeration. Something about the spices. I don't know if it's true. But also on the right, you see that white stuff is curds. It's like a really strong, funky tasting yogurt that I love. It really changes the flavor of everything. But this is a big meal for a lot of these people. A lot of these people are eating a small bowl of rice twice a day, and that's all they eat.
Notice they're all eating with their hands.
And there's no silverware. Everybody's eating with their right hand. They don't use their left hand ever, and I'll explain that to you personally later. But they eat with their right hand, and then somebody will come around with water, and they just rinse their hands off and shake it on the ground. Or if you're inside somewhere, even at restaurants, they might bring, if you're eating with your hands, a bowl, and they'll pour water over your hand into that bowl for you to wash your hands. Eating like that, it's kind of nice. I could just go to town, but I also just feel gross, like I need a shower if I was to eat that way. Then another tour of the village there in Petapudi, which, by the way, Peta means small, and Pudi, or actually Peta means large, and Pudi means little village. So it's large little village is the name of the town. I think they said there's about 40,000 people living there, and that's a small place. Like, you know, the city we're in had a couple million people, and Chennai has like 10 million people. It's just so populated. Wednesday, January 2nd, I think is the right date. We showed up at this place called Bandana Pudi, which my son Jackson called banana pudding when he went there years ago. But we've been there several times. The church meets in a little small, it's got walls, but it's more of a hut that can seat about 25 people really crammed in there. But we get there, and I was like, what's going on out in that field? And then I found out we're going out in that field, which I was thankful Carrie wasn't there, because Carrie Willis ain't going in no field where there might be snakes. So anyway, we go out there, and we're walking on the dikes between the fields. That's, you know, about a foot-wide path and drops off into mud on either side. So that was exciting. They were pretty concerned about us getting out there safely. But they had set up this tent out there, and it wasn't until towards the end of David or Dennis's sermon that I was like, hey, there's chalk out here. I bet they're planning to build a building on this property. So found out that was indeed the case. They have bought that land with their money that they've raised, and they brought all the dirt in, had it delivered, and members helped pile up the dirt and raise that land up to where it could be built on. And then but yeah, this is right out. It was the most tranquil sermon and place for a meeting I've ever been to there. But we laid the foundation stone at the corner, which is a big ceremonial thing. It's a thing that they do to keep in our minds, hey, we laid a foundation stone, now we need to help raise money for that building. Little manipulation there. I was telling Dennis, I was like, do you feel like we're being, I don't know, grifted here? It's like, well, it's for building a church building. Like, I don't think anybody's like making off with our dollars here. We know these people, they've been working for years. So Dennis and the local preacher there are laying, I think, the first stone. And the local preacher, for years, we support 4 preachers, Suri, Samson, Gandhi, and Bhaskar Paul. 4 local preachers at $90 a month, I think, something like that. But they've asked for years for this man to go on support. He has 2 little boys, and his wife recently went off to Dubai to work to raise money. And that really crushed me because those little boys need their mom there with them. And I really wish we could raise the $90 a month extra to bring this one more man on. It's hard. There's so much need there. There's so many things I would love to do. And it's a lot of times I'll just say, we got to draw the line. We can't expand. That's one more person we got to go out and visit and do all these things with. But I really wish we could rally enough people to give just a few % more every week and easily pay this man that money.
On the right.
Yeah, so after laying some foundation stones and doing some mortar on them, which I was terrible at, David was pretty good at mortaring these stones. Then they throw flowers on them and have a prayer and pray for the Lord to bless them in building that church building. After that, or actually before that, this girl had come forward to be baptized. And so after the foundation stone, we went over to the canal nearby. In that canal, a lady was on the concrete ramp down into it washing her clothes. So your clothes washing there is to take some suds and to wash it in the canal that the cows are in, they actually, I don't know, people who own cows take them out every day and wash them. I don't know why they wash these cows. We don't wash cows here, I don't think. But they're out there washing their cows. Also, during the confession, she was over there with Suri, confessing her faith in Jesus as the Son of God. I saw a flash in the water, and I saw a snake bite a fish and swim off with a fish, and it crawled up in some brush. So they start walking down the water. I'm going, Suri, there was just a snake in there. He's like, it's fine, brother. So they walked down in that water and baptized her, and she came out, and I was so tense that the snake was going to come bite them. But, I mean, it's life or death there. So there's the ladies' clothes piled up there. Those ramps are for the cows to come down in. That water is filthy. It is filthy, and they're using it to wash clothes. It's just hard to fathom. Also at this place, we've never had this before, but this church had a big fellowship meal there. I'm pretty sure whenever they plan something like this, Suri will say, hey, you need to boil that chicken to death. Like, make sure everything's super clean. But they fed us more food than I've ever had in India at this little church building, and just kept shoving it on our plates and not taking no for an answer. That night, we got to take kids to a park, which we've taken. Me and Dennis got to take the kids to this playground there last time, so played with the kids at the park. I think the teen girls were a little over this park. There's a new mall in town. I wish the girls could have gone to the mall. But that was a big deal. And they transferred the kids from the village, about 40 kids, I think there was that many, in 3 of these autos. These little auto rickshaws are 3-wheel vehicles, and they ideally would carry about 6 or 7 adults, but we put about 22 kids in there with Dennis. So Dennis Terrell is in that right there inside that picture somewhere, with kids just piled up on him and made it safely to the restaurant. We took them to a restaurant, fed them a meal, and hung out and got ice cream and just had a big night out, and that was a really big deal. The girl on the bottom left there, she got sick at the restaurant, so she had a huge temperature, but we saw her. She was good the next day or two. Next day we had, I think it was Thursday, we had a preachers meeting with local preachers from the area, about 22 preachers and their wives. So we had some encouraging lessons with them, and then we broke out and Melanie taught the ladies, and then the men, we kind of had a discussion back and forth. By the way, Dennis preached on elders, and he said in the New Testament, Paul sent brethren around to establish elders in every church. Why aren't there elders in India? And so we taught the lesson of why there needs to be elders and the advantages of having an eldership. And then in the breakout session, asked the men, like, what's going on with elders? And they said they've tried it. When they've offered it, some men would say they wanted to do it, but then wouldn't step up, or they wouldn't meet up to have some training and discussion about what it means to be an elder. So they're working on it. And I think that will change the nature of the work there dramatically. It should help in so many ways. Melanie had a female interpreter, which was a big deal, because ladies in the past have not liked having Suri's son or whoever has interpreted for them in the past. So this lady had taught English actually to Suri when he was a boy from the bigger city we were staying in, came out and translated for that. What did you talk about, Melanie? What? It's like Ladies' Day, which, just to embarrass Melanie, Melanie was the big hit on this trip. Like David said it, but I mean, you would think a movie star was there whenever people saw Melanie and just wanted pictures with Melanie. There they are. And it's just hard to express how colorful and beautiful all this is. These little shriveled ladies with their beautiful saris, and everybody just wanted to be there with us. It was such a nice thing. This, losing track of what day, but this is the church we helped build, the church building we helped build for Bhaskar Paul. So for years, we would go visit this place, and they were in a building that they didn't have a deed to. They were kind of squatting in. It was kind of almost in the road. The Hindus locally didn't like that the church was meeting there. So we've been raising funds for a couple of years and sent, I think, a little over $10,000. But this building was way nicer than I expected. We had actually talked about trying to raise $4,000 or $5,000 for like a prayer shed with open walls. But this was really, really nice. And they had raised a lot of money themselves from Indian brethren. And it's phenomenal to see something that was potentially a really bad situation in other villages. When Hindu radicals would get stirred up by politics or whatever was going on, they would come and just with the weight of a crowd pushed the walls down. There's a Baptist church we drove by a few times where they actually pushed the walls down so this church couldn't meet in their building anymore. But this has shown that village that the church is here to stay. It's an interesting concept. I've never been big on building church buildings as being the most important thing we need to do, but it does give them a literal foundation to work out of that we take for granted here. This building's been here a long, long time. This is a new presence in that village that is noticed. So there they are in that building. They had some fancy lights in there. A little lady, when she came in, kneeled down to pray. It's just so, again, so humbling. That's that congregation out in front of the new building. They had planned last year. It had just gotten finished. So when me and Dennis were planning to go last spring, they were going to have a big grand opening, but they opened anyway. So that's the extent of the building. That was also rice paddy until they brought in all the dirt to raise up that land. But that little lean-to on the side there is their bathroom. So they spent all their money on the inside of the building and didn't build any kind of toilet. Yeah, David got to grand opening that. But they need some more construction there. I don't know what that will cost them. Probably around $400 like the others. We visited this place. This place had this preacher. I'd never met him before this trip, but this preacher in a village called Samalcott, and had, with his own money, and actually his wife had spent several years in Dubai working as a servant, had sent money back, and with that money they built this church building, which it's more of a prayer shed. It's got a roof and some columns and short walls and a bit of a compound wall, but it's all pretty much wide open in there. And that church was just on fire. I thought it was a really neat experience, just totally self-motivated. The mom is back. She had I think an 18, a 20-year-old, and a 22-year-old, or some really close age range of daughters, and it was really good to see. On like Friday morning, I took Dennis for a walk, and we went to visit this temple near our hotel, and they were super friendly, invited us in, put red dots on our head, and invited us to pray to their gods. And we're like, we'll just look. You know, we're not here to worship idols. But walking home with this dot on her head, I was like, I just can't wait to get back and wash that off. They were also eating some rice, this kind of ceremonial thing. I felt very welcome everywhere we went. I don't know what it is about David. Sometimes people may give David dirty looks, but when somebody gave David a hard time about something on the street, David said Happy New Year, and kind of smoothed it over. So, but everywhere we went, everywhere you look, there's idols or shrines or temples. This is in our hotel. There's a statue of Ganesh as you walk in, the elephant god, and this worker in the hotel, she, just out of the corner of my eye, I noticed she took off her shoes, bowed to the idol several times, and prayed for a couple minutes before going back to work. And it's just, you know, the level of idolatry and the kind of stronghold that Satan has over people's minds in this country. It's easy to kind of forget that you're in a place where they're worshiping false gods, like everybody encamped around the Israelites. Like, it's just, you know, over here, the materialism, everything to me is just as bad, but it's so straight out of the Old Testament that it's hard to even keep it fresh in your mind what's going on. Like that temple, I think a lot of Americans go in there and they bow down and worship those idols and don't know what they're doing. Let me wrap this up real quick. Went to another church building, or another church that meets in a home, but they have also raised money and bought some land out near a dump. This is like a slum outside of the city we were staying in, and we laid foundation stones there. By the way, this is the only single preacher there, so any ladies who want to move to India and marry this guy, super nice guy, preaches at 3 different church groups every Sunday morning. But there's just garbage piled up out there, and it's a village. Everybody's so poor there that they really respond. They don't have all these things holding them back from responding to the gospel like so many people do here. So the response rate in India is just phenomenal. This is Brother Gandhi's house. The church meets in the space above his house. It's his family's inherited property, and he's been preaching there for 7 or 8 years now. After that meeting, a lot of people wanted to have prayers. They want personal prayers from you, which are in English, and I don't really like doing that without a translator. But they want it, and if somebody's got like, hey, my arm is messed up, you can pray for them and make them feel better about their arm. And effective, fervent prayer. Hopefully God's got in mind what the right thing is to do here. But it's an interesting thing. At the church out in the rice field, one old lady did come down and bow down at David's feet after he preached and was worshiping David Shawnoff, which has happened to me before too. And it just shows you these people it's a different culture. It's hard to get people over all these things. When they come into church, some of that comes with them. It's hard to teach everything at once, but that's exactly what Paul and all of the apostles and disciples were doing in the first century. But it's just so relevant over there. I'll just leave it with this. There's only about 2% of the population of India, 1.2 billion people, that's Christian, but there's a lot of people to be reached. The fields couldn't be any more white to harvest than in India, and the work that we do there gets a lot of results, and the church here at Central and the Trimble Bible class has done amazing work there over the years. Small, steady support of things that really make a difference in people's lives, and I'm so grateful to be the one who gets to go, but we couldn't go without all the senders. So thank you so much, and if there's more you can do, we can find you things to invest in over there. These 2 church buildings, that 1 preacher support, more toilets, there's things we can do. Billy's going to pass the plate, but all that money, as Art said, goes to that work, and I appreciate you guys for supporting it.
Surrey is very grateful to you.
Surrey mentions the Central Church in every prayer. I did want to say we got to see some monkeys. That was the one touristy thing we got to do, was feed monkeys on the side of the road. Which, by the way, some other guys were stopping and feeding the monkeys, and I think there's a monkey god, Hanuman, so they're worshiping by feeding these monkeys. Thank you, and we'll be talking more about this next Sunday during the sermon on our missions focus Sunday.
Good. Good, real good. I'll get the lights.
Thank you, Chris. And we're glad all of you got to hear this.